Imagine seeing hours, days, even weeks fly by whilst preparing for a presentation. You repeatedly recheck every line, polish every slide, and keep verifying information. And then, on the day you're supposed to present, you freeze. For weeks, you've convinced yourself it's not ready yet, only to realize that despite your over-preparation, you couldn't even rehearse once. For many of us, this is a daily reality. From our careers to our personal projects, we are taught to chase flawlessness before we even begin. But what if real failure is not trying at all? What if the courage to begin, imperfect as it may be, is the first and most important step towards anything meaningful in our lives? We live in a society that glorifies polished outcomes. Think of how, amidst the countless hours we spend doom scrolling social media and on our screens, we only see the immaculate performances, the perfectly edited posts, the flawless products. The truth is, we rarely ever see the messy drafts, the repeated failures, and the uncertainty that lies behind each and every achievement. As a result, many of us hesitate to even begin and tell ourselves we are simply preparing. Now, this year I visited South Korea, and I absolutely loved their culture, heritage, and efficiency. However, I couldn't help but draw the parallel between how similar their society is to Singaporean society. According to the OECD, students in Asian countries like Singapore and Southeast Asia consistently rank amongst the highest with regards to academic performance. In a similar manner, interestingly, they also rank the highest with regards to anxiety. Now, South Korea, known for its perfectionist society, has deep roots in their rapid economic development following the Korean War, which instilled a culture of relentless striving, underscored by their Confucian-based culture set on the cornerstone of discipline and hierarchy. Now, in Singapore, the roots differ but are just as powerful. As the father of our nation, the Honorable Lee Kuan Yew had once prominently stated, "What we lack in numbers, we will make up for in quality, in the standards of discipline, training, dedication, and leadership." The fact is, our nation was shaped by a survivalist mindset born from being a small, resource-scarce state, combined with our meritocratic education system, where even one mark, even one exam, could completely alter the trajectory of one's life. I would like to share a personal anecdote of mine with the audience. My younger brother recently gave the 2025 series for the primary school leaving examination, also known as a PSLE. In essence, it is a national exam conducted by the Ministry of Education, which decides the educational path an individual will fall into based on their results. Basically, for most 12-year-olds in Singapore, this is one of their biggest fears and is a product of endless preparation, stress, and utter dedication. Quite frankly, not often seen in 12-year-olds in other parts of the world. Although it may be shocking to non-locals in Singapore, it is a common pattern to begin preparing for this exam before the child is even a decade old. Thus, although it does support our meritocratic, unprejudiced educational system, it also does contribute towards an immense amount of pressure for both the candidate and the candidate's family with regards to emotional, financial, and mental burdens. To meet this standard, Singaporean parents are often seen consistently upholding the ideal of fighting for a spot in a top school through striving for perfectionism. Now, this is where the cultural layer comes in. Our Asian culture often praises perfection as discipline, but in truth, it serves as a guise for something else: fear. In Singapore, we even have a Hokkien term for it: kiasu, the fear of losing out. Now, kiasuism isn't always bad. It drives us to work hard, to prepare thoroughly, and above all, to never take an opportunity for granted. However, the dark side of kiasuism is that in trying so hard not to lose, we sometimes lose the one thing that matters the most to us: time. We wait endlessly until conditions are perfect. We polish endlessly until the draft is flawless. And by the time the moment has passed and the opportunity is simply gone. Now, sometimes the best way to illustrate this is with humor. Recently, I was watching one of the most popular sitcoms of all time, Friends. One of my favorite characters from the show was Monica Geller, not just due to her character, her humor, her beauty, but also because she perfectly embodied what I was trying to study, perfectionism. Often described as the embodiment of OCD, she was the ultimate perfectionist, obsessed with order, control, and making sure each and everything was just right. But in the show, this very trait often made her distraught. She would isolate her friends with her rigidity, she would lose sleep over minor details, and in the end, she even sabotaged her own relationship because things didn't meet her unrealistic standards. True, Monica's perfectionism did make her accomplished in some ways, but it also did hold her back emotionally. And that's the danger. When we are consumed by perfectionism, the very trait that we think will help us succeed, it becomes the very thing that limits us. Now, personally, I have been a victim of this very state through various stages in my life. And no, I'm not trying to preach the notion of not giving something your best or striving for excellence. Instead, my goal today on this stage in front of you is to explain to you that it's completely fine not to be the very best in every domain of your life, along with how you can combat the various issues associated with trying to be perfect. The thing is, the world doesn't reward the perfect idea trapped in a notebook. It rewards the person willing to put out that imperfect, incomplete draft, learn from it, and even make it better. Take Elon Musk. Today, he's known for revolutionizing industries all across the world. But his beginnings were anything but flawless. The first three SpaceX rocket launches all failed. Each failure costed millions of dollars and could have easily ended the enterprise. But Musk launched again, and on the fourth and final try, he did it. That imperfect persistence didn't just save his company, it revolutionized the world forever. Therefore, we could conclude that his success wasn't born from waiting for a flawless plan. It was born from the courage to begin, the courage to fail, and above all, the courage to keep going. And the fact is, this isn't just an observation of mine. This very state is backed by a large amount of empirical data. In the 1990s, psychologists Gordon Flett and Paul Hewitt, after studying perfectionism for a long time, had concluded perfectionism is broken down into three types. Firstly, self-oriented perfectionism, the pressure we put on ourselves to meet our own highly impossible standards. Secondly, other-oriented perfectionism, the pressure we put on others to be flawless. And third, socially prescribed perfectionism, the belief that everyone around us expects us to be perfect. It is this third type that is especially detrimental towards us, because studies show that it is closely linked to stress, anxiety, and even severe depression when influenced by the spotlight effect. Our fear of imperfection thereby grows overwhelming. We avoid risk, and we become paralyzed. Now, this paralysis has a very specific name: analysis paralysis. It is the tendency to overthink, to overplan, to delay action in search of the perfect choice. In essence, it is the inability to make a decision due to overthinking, often caused by having far too many options and an overwhelming amount of data, which leads to a state we call inertia. The longer we wait, the more blemishes we see, and the harder it gets to even take the smallest step forward. Now, what Flett and Hewitt's research reminds us of is that perfectionism doesn't exactly shield us from criticism. Think of how if revolutionaries such as Mahatma Gandhi, Steve Jobs, Nikola Tesla fell victim to this very effect, our lives would be significantly different, and to be honest, mankind would not be what it is. Thereby, in my opinion, perfectionism merely serves as a veneer for protection and serves as a form of avoidance. It stops us not from failing, but from ever starting. Now, as you can see on the screen, the highlighted regions of the MRI represents the part of the brains that activate when we are caught in overthinking. The prefrontal cortex over here, responsible for planning and judgment, goes into overdrive. Essentially, endlessly analyzing every possibility. The anterior cingulate cortex over here is essentially our brain's error detecting mechanism, constantly flagging mistakes before they even occur. And these larger parts of the brain that are glowing in the picture form what is called our brain's default mode network. So this system essentially turns on when we're reflecting or imagining the future. Yes, in balance, these systems are vital. They help us prepare, they help us adapt. But when perfectionism and overthinking takes hold, they become hyperactive, endlessly looping, trapping us in the state I talked about, analysis paralysis. In essence, our own brain restrains us, keeping us anxious, drained, and overwhelmed. Now, how do we move beyond paralysis? One answer lies in physics. I would like to draw your attention towards this ball. Newton's first law of motion says that a body at rest stays at rest unless acted on by an external force. Think of yourself as this body, full of ideas, full of potential. But after all, you are stationary, waiting. The moment you take action, however small, however imperfect, you create motion. Once you start, you learn, you adapt, and then you are absolutely unstoppable. By definition, to do is to work on something to bring it to completion or to a required state. This is the essence of the art of doing. It doesn't mean rushing blindly or lowering your standards. It means shifting from your obsession with flawless outcomes to an engagement with the messy, imperfect process and paying heed to momentum over inertia. Therefore, taking action is about daring to take that first step. And for those of you who fear failure, such as my past self, I would like to remind you that failure is inevitable and is nothing but a stepping stone towards your ultimate success. To put into perspective for you, if you knew you'd be closer to success each time you fail, how badly would you want to fail? After all, it is not failure that you should fear. Instead, it is to be conquered by it. Take the example of the mighty French Emperor Napoleon. As he once famously stated, and I quote, "He who fears being conquered is sure of defeat." With that in mind, imagine how different the course of history would have been if Napoleon didn't return from exile and march his way all the way back to Paris to ascend the throne and coronate himself Emperor of France. And so, I ask the future change makers, leaders, revolutionaries sitting in the audience, what is one thing you've truly been wanting to do? What is a decision you need to make in your life but can't seem to? I humbly request you to merely write it down. Ignore all the kiasuism, defy the societal norms foisted upon you, and simply take a small, imperfect, but courageous step towards it tomorrow. Because in the end, the fact is, the greatest measure of bravery is not in perfection, neither is it in finishing, but it is in one simple choice: the courage to begin. Thank you.